Hi, everyone. It's Jeff Fisher of High School Football America, heading to the cradle of high school football, one of the best programs in the nation, Massillon, Ohio. And a guy we haven't talked to in a long time. Last time we talked to him was when he was making the jump from LaSalle there in the Cincinnati area. Now he's in Northeast Ohio, and the Massillon Tigers have been a regular in the High School Football America 100. The guy on the other side of the box is the man leading the Tigers, that traditional, powerful program, home of Paul Brown. Welcome to today's conversation today, Coach. It's hot in my studio here. I might as well tell everybody that there. I think I'm losing my brain. Nate Morris in the box there. Hi, Coach. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me on, Jeff. It's great to be with you.
I kind of feel like I'm in the middle of two-a-days, as I told you here. It is, I think it's about 103 in my studio right now. Let's talk about the tradition there. We did a little story earlier this week, number 3 in the all-time wins category in high school football across America. Guy by the name of Brown, a coach there. The stadium's named after him. What's it like to coach literally at one of the best high school football programs in America?
Well, I mean, it's if you like high school football, this is a place to be. I'll say that. It's a lot like, and I wasn't alive in the '50s, but what you could imagine, a slice of Americana that would be the 1950s, and what playing high school football was like back then. Is really the experience that our kids get here at Massillon with the community support. We have 3,000 season ticket holders. Our stadium seats just shy of 17,000. That'll be full when we play our rivalry game at home. But then it's the myriad of downtown pep rallies to Wednesday morning prayer breakfast with our rival team across 8 miles across the county. Rotary Club meetings where our captains are required to attend. Bonfires, parades. We have a Massillon McKinley parade that happens on Friday, week 10. I mean, it's just like it's not just the football; it's the whole community aspect within our city of Massillon, and it's an unbelievable experience. I'm jealous of our kids. I wish I had played high school football here.
One of the things that I always think about when it comes to Massillon is you guys have some fans that let us know when we're doing things right with the rankings and wrong with the rankings. I think you guys may lead the nation in direct messages to High School Football America. Talk a little bit about, since it's been a while since we talked to you. Like I said, it was about 6 years ago now that we first spoke, and obviously, you knew coming in that there was a tradition that you were going to take control of, but you also are a guy that had a lot of success before that, the state championship at LaSalle. What were some of the things that you did then that worked or maybe didn't work that you had to tweak to get it to the point where you guys have gone 3 straight years state runner-up? I know you don't like state runner-up. You'd like to hear state champions, but what are some of the things that you've done over the last 6 years to get the program to the spot where it's a perennial team in our High School Football America 100?
It's funny because so I've been the head coach at 3 different programs, 3 very different programs, and each time I left on a good note, at least as it comes to we were good when we left, and every time you have this thought like I think I know how to do this, and maybe I'm pretty good at it. Maybe we've got a great system, and then you find out that it doesn't really work like that. That every place is different, and that it's not repeatable necessarily. Like, you kind of have to figure out what are the really unique features of every program and every community, and try to build off that. And I'll even give you an example. So when I went from LaSalle to Massillon, so LaSalle really didn't have much football tradition. Won a couple of state titles in track, a couple of state titles in basketball, but they hadn't won a playoff game yet in football, and played in a great conference. The GCL South had only shared the league title, I think, once in 50 some odd years. And so they were definitely viewed as like the fourth out of four in that conference with St. X and Moeller and Elder and then LaSalle. And so like we had to kind of invent some things to rally around internally within our program, and came up with a system where we broke the team into units, as we call them. Urban Meyer talked about that a lot, and I'm sure still does with the Jaguars now, but broke them up into units, and then really intensified that and made it like all encompassing and all important, and very military-esque. And that worked. We accomplished some things that we wanted to accomplish as far as building our program and developing leadership, and we won a state title in 2014, and then Massillon calls, and I ended up taking that job. And so you think, like I said, you think, oh, I'm pretty good at this. We got to, we know how to do this. Our system works. And, I don't even know how to really explain it as far as why it didn't work exactly, but it just didn't. It just didn't work quite the same way. And one of my coaches on my staff now is named Dave Weber. Dave played at Massillon, and nobody loves Massillon quite the way Dave does, and in the same manner that he does. I mean, he loves it top to bottom. And it was Dave that taught me, really indirectly, I would say, that, it's almost like you don't need to go to that length here to try to manufacture something when it's already here. It's already here, right? Just grab a hold of what Massillon is. And when we kind of changed some gears in that way was when, and everything's multi-factor, but things really started to take off, and we really started to find our identity as a program. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just funny. Whereas, if you're not somewhere that has that type of tradition, that type of community support, and all those things, I think you do kind of have to manufacture it. But if it's there, I think it can be counterproductive. Is what I found, and you just had to latch on to what you actually do have. And so that's kind of been our experience here at Massillon.
When did you kind of realize that you had the program going in the right direction, that you were getting to the point where, year in and year out, you are mentioned as one of the favorites for a state title in the state of Ohio once again?
It was definitely the 2017 season. So we're coming out of 2016, and we had an okay year. We finished 8-3, but we lost in the first round of the playoffs. And as far as and I'm not trying to take away anything from any of the guys that we had, but as far as talent wise, like we weren't very good. But we had kids that absolutely worked their tails off. We had excellent leadership, and we did have an up and coming junior class that was fairly talented, but they weren't quite ready. I mean, everybody out there listening knows what that's like. But our senior class specifically was not a very talented class, but they were great kids, like I said, and they worked their tails off. And we were probably the best practice team that I've ever had. Just these guys just absolutely got after it. And we went through some ebbs and flows in our season, made the playoffs, and then went on a run and ended up playing in the state semifinals. Lost to Winton Woods, Cincinnati Winton Woods in the state semifinals. But we did that with a team that, like, if you stack this up talent wise, you'd never pick us to be there, but we were there, right? And it was due to the character and the hard work and the types of kids that really encompass that senior class. And that's what propelled us into the 2018 season, which, we were 14-0 going into the final game. We lost our best player in the state semis, we won. We beat Cincinnati Winton Woods that next year, but we lost our best player to a broken ankle. And so we hobbled a little bit in that last game, but we still finished 14-1 and fantastic year. And then the next couple of years also, in the state finals 3 years in a row. We've lost 3 years in a row, and we feel like we're 0-3 really over the last 3 years. But there was no doubt it's that 2017 team that was short on talent but high on character that created the scenario that we're enjoying right now.
What's it like to be the head coach in a historic, just win-laden, championship-laden community? Yeah, you haven't gotten the gold the last 3 years, but I mean, it's got to be a heck of a lot of fun, although albeit a little bit of pressure with that too, I would think.
Yeah, I really try not to think about it, to be honest, and I try to approach things the way I would anywhere, and part of that is learning, like I did learn from Dave Weber, our assistant coach, that the fact that you have to let Massillon be Massillon a little bit with how you're running your program, what are the things that are important to you as a program. You got to latch onto that. But I mean, that's kind of independent of really being the head coach here. That's more like I don't know, having some humility. I think without that, I think this job and lots of other jobs you can get a little bit out of control. You have to be humble, I guess, and I think I try to do that by, every once in a while you do look around this place, and you look around the indoor, and you look around and you see Paul Brown's pictures everywhere, and so every once in a while it knocks you back a little bit with I would have never thought 10 years ago, 15 years ago that I'd be the head coach at Massillon. It just but that's how life is.
Yeah.
But just trying to treat it just the same way as I would any job. Like I feel like, if I never left Minster, my first head coaching job, I would be working just as hard as I work here to be the head coach here. And, I think it's an honor to be the head coach anywhere, because you're in charge of, young men that are the future leaders of our country. And, in a society where, masculinity and manliness is sometimes looked down upon. We have an opportunity to show that, a masculine way of life or masculine feelings and emotions have a place in this world. And I think that's a tremendous responsibility that we all have.
Yeah. You mentioned Dave Weber. I was just curious about the makeup of the staff. A lot of small towns around the country, you got a lot of guys that play in the program, go out, go to college, and then come back and give back. What's the makeup of your staff? Did you bring in some people from the past? Did you keep a lot of people there? Obviously, Dave was there. And how does that help you keep connected with all that stuff, like the Paul Brown pictures and all that?
Yeah. So right now, actually, our entire defensive staff is all Massillon graduates, and that's on purpose, but not at risk of not being able to hire good coaches. So you have to be a Massillon grad, and you have to be a great coach. It's just because you're a Massillon grad doesn't mean that we just hire you. But I think we're lucky that with what we have here at Massillon, it tends to latch on to people, obviously, and there's a high percentage of those people that say it was so important to me that I want to give back, and I want to do what I can to provide that type of experience for the next generation. And so we have I don't know, like we may be the Mountain Union of high school football with the amount of coaches that we produce. We produce a tons of great coaches. I mean, since Paul Brown, have forever. And so I've got, like I said, my entire defensive staff, all Massillon graduates. Some of them played at a really high level. Some of them, Massillon was was their last experience playing football, but they're all excellent coaches. They all care about kids. And they, the added benefit there is that they understand this town, right? And they understand what it means to play for the Tigers. And that's a tremendous advantage if you can find those guys like that in your community.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. It's one of the beauties, right, of high school football that you have guys that do that and stay connected with the program. Because we like to go in different directions here, I'm just curious, as a head coach, having the success that you've had, and for the young guys out there, watching this that maybe they've never coached, but they're interested in getting into the profession. What are some of the things that you look for when you're trying to find a new guy? I mean, you talked a little bit about that. It helps if they're from Massillon, maybe in some cases, but what are some of the nuggets you can give these young guys out there so they know what to do when they get on the phone with you or sitting down in front of you and are trying to get into the profession?
I'll tell you what, the longer I do this, the less I care about what your actual experience level is with football. And I used to think that was a really big deal, and that the opportunity to hire somebody that played in the NFL was a great thing. And come to find out, I don't believe that to be true at all. When we go through the hiring process, I like to involve my coaching staff in that, especially the coordinators, because I value their opinions.
Mm-hmm.
And because the number one thing is that we're looking for somebody that fits into our staff. Like we spend way too much time together to hire somebody, bring somebody into our family that doesn't have the type of personality that we would get along with, that we would want to go out to dinner with maybe. So that's really number one is we're looking for good people,
Mm-hmm.
that draw people to them. That people. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
That people want to be around, essentially, right? I mean that's kind of number one, because and then so from there, then okay, so what's your football expertise, and so then we can kind of get into that, but we never trump football expertise over fit on staff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it has to start there. It has to start. We take everybody that we interview that we think fits into our staff, and so from there, okay, so let's start measuring the different things about football acumen and knowledge of the game, and even does he have experience coaching the position that we're looking for? Like I would rather hire an offensive line guy to coach our defensive line than to hire a D line guy that doesn't fit our staff personality.
Interesting.
So, and then people that are go-getters, essentially people that, and I'll tell you what else, something now that we're talking about it, it's a good topic. What we probably like the least, me definitely, and our coordinators, the guys that sit on these interviews with me too, is guys that act like, or the right way to say it, I would just say it like that act like or try to make you believe that they're better than they are. Right? So like somebody that, like, we had an interview one time with a guy that I think he was in camp with the Detroit Lions, something like that. And we're interviewing and we're getting to some more open-ended football questions. And I think my offensive line coach at the time asked, so what is like from an offensive run game perspective, like what do you really like to like what is your base menu of plays, or something like that? And he said, well, pretty much, and he had the Detroit Lions playbook with him, and he said something like, pretty much everything that's in this book is right in my wheelhouse. And it's like, you were probably there for 7 days, and like you're an expert on the whole book. Like you don't have something specific that you kind of take ownership of or whatnot. And it's just like for us, I don't think there's anything more off-putting. Whereas like somebody that has some humility and says, even you know, if you don't know how to answer that question, you know what? I'm not sure that I've thought about it like that. But answering things honestly and not trying to blow yourself up to like try to like sell yourself to
Yeah.
us. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like
I know. I
he
asked
really
him.
likes to use car salesman
Yeah,
types.
no, and it's funny, and I don't want to go too deep down this rabbit hole. We'll get back to the Tigers in a second, but I think you're giving a lot of great information to guys that, a lot of people that look at high school football in America are coaches. And one of the things I hear from the HCs and even OCs and DCs as I talk to them is about these young guys. And when I'm not cracking on the young guys right now, but
Yeah,
it's sort of like they think that they don't have to pay their dues, meaning
right.
you can walk in as an OCDC, that sort of thing. I mean, how do you deal with that if you find that's right in front of you? I guess you don't hire them, one, but what if it's on the staff? Is it just, well, it's been nice knowing you?
Yeah, I mean, at some point it has to be. It's certainly you're going to try to develop first, but if they're not willing to make the changes to meet the expectations that you're outlining, then they've got to find something else to do.
Yeah, it's just funny that there's so many people. I guess it's the McDonald's theory, right? Get everything quick and fast, and that's what people
But I
expect of the
think
coach.
I think that's a tremendous advantage for the young guys out there that do it right because it's rare. It used to be everybody did it right, right? It used to be everybody, looked somebody in the eye and had a good firm handshake, and maybe it's not like that anymore. But for the guys that do, and you're becoming rare, right? And economics tells you that you're now a hot commodity.
Yeah. You stand out in that crowd. Okay, back to the Tigers. You mentioned the 0-3. What are you guys doing to kind of get over that hump? How are you using that as motivation, or is it just you wipe the slate clean? Because that's one of, again, the beauties of high school football, right? It's changing on a yearly basis. So what do you do to try and get over that hump and capture that gold in Ohio?
Yeah, I mean it's going back to the drawing board and reevaluating everything every year, and so that's something that I think never stops, and I am vehemently against doing things because that's the way they've been done. Like that to me is as about as unproductive as of a statement as you could kind of come up with. If that doesn't mean you can't do things the way you've always done them, but it's because they're still the right thing to do, right?
Mhm.
I mean, it should always be evaluated, and so you should always be trying to improve every part of your program, and so we try to go back to square one every year and reevaluate everything top to bottom. And I do feel like we're in a really good place right now, culture wise. Once again, dating back to that 2017 team that just set the standard with how you practice and how you approach the game. And even though they weren't the most talented team, that team really set the tone. But it's been a steady progression since then, culture wise. I think we're at a good place. We only returned 4 starters from last year, which is the least that I can ever remember.
Mhm.
Usually we're, I don't know, 8, maybe on the low end, 11, 12, 13 at the high end. And, we only returned 4, but I don't know, 20 some lettermen, something like that. So some guys that played ball, but not been full-time starters. And we do have some talented guys that are now waiting their turn. I think our staff does a great job of development. Our strength coach, Danny Studer, does an absolute phenomenal job. If you guys, there is a movie about Massillon on net. Is it on? It's on Netflix. I think it's on iMovies.
Okay.
It's on movies, the Apple movies called Go Tigers. One of the stars of that movie was Danny Studer, our strength coach. His dad was a strength coach for the Tigers for 20 years when Danny was coming through. But so Danny's where he's supposed to be right now. He's the strength coach of the Tigers and does an absolute phenomenal job developing our guys. And so now, we've got seniors that maybe aren't the most talented kids in the world, but they're playing for us because they're developed. Whereas if these kids were underdeveloped or undeveloped,
Mhm.
there's no way they could play at the level that we play at, but they can. And so you've got a we're in a place right now where unless you are, just crazy talented and work hard and are disciplined, you're not going to play early. It's just there's just no way. We're in too healthy of a spot as a program.
Right.
A lot of that thanks to Danny and our other assistants. Um, but yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see how this year plays out. Um, like I said, only 4 starters, but we got some guys coming up that maybe weren't starters, but should be good football players.
Right.
It's not like the covers bear anything, and I don't know that we're not necessarily going to be young, but we're going to be new faces.
But
Right.
depth, I think that's a word that gets lost on a lot of people. When you see programs that are good year in and year out, you'll have the years like you're talking about, 4 guys coming back. But I think you build that depth in a program. Is it easy to have the depth at Massillon because of the tradition, or is that something you have to work on in this day and age?
It's definitely something you have to work on. Definitely. When one of the things that was broken when I got here was the weight room, the strength training program, the development of the kids, and that's they say in a college program your number one hire is a strength coach. I concur with that wholeheartedly. I think the same thing's true at our level, and some schools aren't able to have a strength coach. We luckily are, and that's Danny Studer is my number 2. He's as much responsible for the success that we've had as anybody, maybe more. But so, I mean, that's really where it comes from. When I was, like I said, my first year, 2015, like looking back, and we didn't have a great year. We were 4-6. And we got whooped on by some people. Like we got whooped. But looking back, like we had some talent. Like we had some talented kids. We were just so underdeveloped. Like it was sickening. And looking back, like really, it's a group that you wish you'd had for 4 years, because I mean they could have been really good, to be honest. And that's that's 99%. Your off-season program and your strength and conditioning coach. And where we're at now, depth-wise, you take it's a simple distribution as far as like talented players, and then like you would be kind of not talented, and then average middle of the road players, and then really talented players. Like there's not many of those at either end. Like really bad and really good. You got most of the guys kind of in the middle, and if you can take all those guys and move them, from average to good, you got a chance to be pretty good. I always thought that was the biggest difference. Like when you think about, when I was in the GCL South, you think about like St. X or Elder and Moeller, and then we've played St. Ignatius now up here at Massillon, and we've played St. Ed's, right? So what's the difference between those schools and average Division I school, let's say? I mean, on the field, it's that instead of one kid that looks like a tight end, they've got 6 of them, right? They've got 6'5", 220-pound kids, right? But they've also, I mean, all their kids don't look like that. Like they don't all look like that. I mean, they've got some 6'1", 285-pound guards. All those schools do, right? But they're maximizing the talent that they have, right? And so instead of 6'2", 240 pounds and underdeveloped and maybe a little bit sloppy, that kid's 6'2", 285, right? And then the next kid's 6'2", 285. Next kid's 6'2", 285. And I think that's what great programs do. I think it's easy to look at them and say, well, they've got this, they've got this, they've got this, they've got this, talent. But I think it's development. And I think that's what we're doing well too, is developing our kids so that they maximize their ability, essentially.
Yeah. And you've got that young team, or at least young in returners. One of the things you talked about improving every year. You've also improved your schedule. You're not looking for cupcakes to get the season underway. I think you got Pickerington Central this year to start, and it's a great schedule. Tell me a little bit about your philosophy of playing the best and how that preps you for the end of the year, the postseason.
Well, I really have always liked playing somebody really good week 1. I really like that. I think it sets the tone for your entire off season. You know, if you got an off game week one, I think that's a negative effect on your training from, you know, from January to August. So I really like that big game. Plus, you know, being the athletic director here also, you know, week one's always a big game as far as the gate. So we like week one at home. We like a big opponent. You know, we want the stands packed. Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, in general, I love that big game week one. Pickering and Central is, you know, I know they're going to be on your guys' top 100 also. They've been really, really good for a long time. I think they've won 2 or 3 state titles in the last 10 years, and then played in the game another 2 or 3 times. Um, they returned the best player in the 23 class in Ohio. The Styles kid at safety is really, really good. So yeah, so we're looking forward to that. All of Massillon will be excited about that game, and we're excited to host them. But yeah, I mean, in general, so our philosophy with scheduling is maybe a little different than some other people, only because we try to schedule as many games at home as possible, and that is a Massillon tradition. Any less than 7 home games, and our fans get a little agitated. They don't like 6 home games. 5 would be inexcusable. I know that's typical for most people, but 5 would be inexcusable. They'd run me out of town. So 7 is probably typical. The goal is 8. We had 8 home games in 2018. It's tough. You know, you're balancing a lot of things, but we try to play home games for several reasons. The number one reason is our fans love it. I mean, that's what they want. It's not so much of a, you know, let's not go on the road thing as much as it is boosting our athletic budget, our football budget, and you know, through that, and making sure our fans are happy, essentially. Yeah. So we try to play. We play a lot of those 1-year contracts at home where, you know, we offer travel stipends and whatnot. We probably the the best game that we've had like that was East St. Louis. You ever had Coach Sunken on?
Yeah, have not, but the Flyers annual people in there. As a matter of fact, he's on the list next month.
Good.
So
I love Coach Sunken. I got to know him pretty well. Now, does a fantastic job. You know, that's a challenging job in an urban environment, and that guy does so much for those kids. But they came out here and we won in a shootout. But it was probably the greatest high school football game I've ever been a part of, just as far as like the drama throughout the whole game with the score back and forth and all the scoring. It was wild.
Yeah, they're not afraid of anybody. They're going to St. John Bosco out in California next year, or this year. So they're not afraid to travel.
Also.
You guys missed a pretty good doubleheader there last year, right? Because of COVID. Didn't you guys have something pretty good lined up for you, for yourselves and a couple of other out-of-state teams? Or am I imagining?
So we were a part of. Nike was kind of getting back into the high school football showcase business, and they were going to host a multi-state showcase here in Stark County at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and we were involved in it. They'd asked us to be involved in it, and we were going to play Bishop Gorman over at the Hall of Fame, which we were pretty excited about. But COVID, COVID casualty.
Yeah, no, it played havoc. Certainly not downplaying what COVID was and still is, but the High School Football America 100 had to dance a little bit last year to get it done. As we go away here, Coach, one thing, let's get a couple of kids by name in here. You said you don't have a lot of returners but who are some of the kids by name that you're expecting, you know, leadership from, obviously talent on the field? Who are those kids that you're going to lean on there, especially at the beginning of the year?
Let's see. I mean, Austin Brawley is a returning starter for us. Safety and receiver, 40-inch vertical jump, 4.4 40 time, extremely talented kid. And he should have a big year for us. Another kid off the top of my head that's going to have a big year for us, Cam Beasley. He'll be our Sam linebacker, also plays some running back, goes 6'2", 200 pounds, kick and run. He's definitely a Division I prospect as well. Um, Another senior class of 22, Reese Turpin, 6'2", 330 some odd pound, guard and nose tackle. Should play some on both sides of the ball for us. Um, Expect Reese to have a big year. So there's three good seniors. I know there's many more, but those are three good ones there that we expect to have great years for us.
Yeah, and then the last one is, what are the boxes that you need to check during the summer and then fall camp to let you know and the staff know going into the season that this is a team that can change that 0-3 into a 1-0?
Well, the biggest thing that we need to see out of our kids is how hard they're willing to work and how much they're willing to sacrifice for each other. Those are things that we're looking for. We want to develop leadership and trust within all of our groups. We still divide the kids up into units. I think that's a very powerful way to do it. I don't know how you manage as many kids as we have to manage without doing that. But I also think that develops leadership, right? So you have units, but you have unit leaders and you have to give those guys real responsibility. I don't think if captain was just a captain in a name or name and coin toss, I don't think we would have those. I don't think we would have them. I mean, I'm not interested in doing anything for the show of it. Essentially, like if you're gonna have captains, if you're gonna have unit leaders, make them real positions, give those kids real leadership. That's one of the things that we try to do. But yeah, I think this team has a chance to be good. It's going to be really fun once we get the pads on, because I think we've got 40 kids that we think could play for us. There's a lot of unknowns. We only returned 4 starters, so we got to get out there and we got to put the pads on. We got to see who can actually play or who's going to rise to the top and all those things. But I think it's going to be a great year and a lot of competition. Competition makes everybody better, and
Makes it fun for the coaches too, right? Yeah. Makes it fun for the coaches, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Well, Coach, I think I'm in playing shape right now, 60 years old. I'm looking down here to see if I sweated through this shirt with these lights on me. But I appreciate you taking the time to join us here and shed a little light on the program there, what you've built. Congratulations on that. Thank you for doing what you do for all of the student athletes there at Massillon. And here's to a great 2021 for you guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.